Hey everyone, you know how sometimes a book just grabs you and doesn't let go? Well, for me, that book was Johann Hari's Stolen Focus, Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Think Deeply Again. And honestly, after reading it, I felt like someone finally put words to a creeping dread I'd been feeling for years. It's not just a book, it's like a wake up call, a giant flashing neon sign saying, hey, your brain is being hijacked, and it's not entirely your fault. Howard starts by telling this really personal story about his godson Adam. Adam, who as a kid was obsessed with Elvis and would sing Jailhouse Rock with all his heart. Later dropped out of school at 15, lost in a blur of screens, his phone, WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, porn. Harry describes him as whirring at the speed of Snapchat, somewhere where nothing still or serious could reach him. Adam himself admits, "I know something's wrong, but I have no idea how to fix it," and Harry realizes, it's not just Adam, it's everywhere. Even the leading willpower scientist in the world, Professor Roy Baumeister, confesses his own struggle, saying his mind jumps around a lot more now and he's not sustaining concentration in perhaps the way I used to. That's shocking, right? This isn't just a personal failing. Harry's core argument, his big bold message, is that our collapsing ability to pay attention is not primarily a personal failing on your part or my part. This is being done to us all by very powerful forces, and it's a systemic problem that requires systemic solutions. So you might be wondering, what exactly are these powerful forces Harry identifies? He spent 30 miles traveling and interviewing over 250 experts, from neuroscientists to social scientists, to uncover what he calls the 12 deep forces damaging our attention. It's a bit of a journey, but trust me, it's worth it. Let's dive into some of these, because they really hit home. First, Harry talks about the sheer increase in speed, switching and filtering. Remember how in the old days, and I'm talking just a few years ago, the internet had pages you click through? Now, it's all infinite scroll, which was actually designed by Asa Raskin to keep you hooked. Harry reveals that Raskin himself calculated that infinite scroll makes people spend 50 more time on sites like Twitter, equating to 200 more human lifetimes spent scrolling every single day. Think about that. And it's not just scrolling. We're constantly switching tasks. Howard points to studies that found the average American college student switches tasks every 65 seconds, focusing on one thing for just 19 seconds. For office workers, it's 3 minutes. Professor Ron Miller, a neuroscientist, calls this the switch cost effect, explaining that your brain has to reconfigure when it goes from one task to another, making you slower, less creative, and more prone to mistakes. He even cites a study that found technological distraction caused a drop in workers' IQ by an average of 10 points, twice the knock you get from smoking cannabis. So yeah, checking your texts is worse for your work than getting it done at your desk. It's bananas. Another huge factor is the crippling of our flow states. Harry introduces us to Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the brilliant psychologist who coined the term flow state. This is when you're so absorbed in something that you lose all sense of yourself and time just melts away. Think of an artist deeply immersed in their painting, or a rock climber perfectly in sync with the mountain. Mihaly discovered that flow happens when you focus on one single meaningful goal that's at the edge of your abilities. But our modern world, with its constant pains and demands, is the enemy of flow. Howard provocatively connects this to B.F. Skinner, the behaviorist who figured out how to make pigeons play ping pong by offering precise reinforcements. Howard argues that many of our apps are designed using these very Skinnerian principles, turning us into those pigeons, desperately craving arbitrary hearts and likes. He saw men in Provincetown obsessively posting selfies to Instagram, looking like Skinner's pigeons with a six-pack and a pina colada. Then there's the rise of physical and mental exhaustion. Harry delves into the science of sleep, talking to experts like Charles Chesler. Did you know that if you stay awake for 90 hours straight, you become as cognitively impaired as if you were drunk? And this isn't just about pulling all-nighters. Missing a couple of hours of sleep every night for a few weeks can have the same effect. Our brains literally don't clean themselves properly when we don't get enough slow-wave sleep, leaving us clogged up with toxins. It makes total sense, right? You can't focus if your brain's full of brain cell poop, as one scientist hilariously put it. So what about our favorite pastime, reading? Harry highlights the collapse of sustained reading. M. Menon, a professor of literacy, explains that reading from screens trains us to scan and skim information, and this behavior bleeds over into how we read on paper, making deep immersion difficult. Studies show that people understand and remember less when reading on screens. A phenomenon called screen inferiority. This has a profound impact not just on comprehension but on our empathy. Raymond Marr, a psychology professor, suggests that reading fiction is like an empathy gym, allowing us to simulate being inside another person's head, boosting our ability to understand others. If we lose this, we lose a crucial form of attention that helps society progress. And speaking of deep thinking, Harry discusses the disruption of mind wandering. For years, we thought mind wandering was just unproductive daydreaming. But neuroscientists like Marcus Recco discovered the default mode network in our brains that lights up when we think we're doing nothing. Jonathan Smallwood and Nathan Spring explained that mind wandering is essential for making sense of the world, connecting disparate ideas like Henry Poincaré solving a math problem while stepping onto a bus, and even mental time travel to prepare for the future. But with constant digital stimulation, we're almost always in a stimulus-driven, stimulus-bound environment, which suppresses your default mode network. We're not focusing, but we're not mind-wandering either. We're just skimming in an unsatisfying way. Now, the big one, the rise of technology that can track and manipulate you. This is where Harry brings in former Google strategist Tristan Harris and Firefox creative Latazar Raskin, who both became disillusioned with the tech industry. They revealed that social media companies' business model, which Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff calls surveillance capitalism, relies on tracking everything you do online to build a voodoo doll of you. This allows them to predict your actions and manipulate your attention for advertising. These algorithms are designed to keep you scrolling, and guess what keeps us scrolling? Anger and outrage. Harry cites studies showing that posts with words like hates, obliterates, or attack get far more engagement. YouTube's algorithm, for example, might lead you from a factual video about the Holocaust to a denial video in just a few clicks, not because it's malicious but because extremism is maximally distracting and keeps you watching. This is debasing the soul of society. As Harris puts it, eroding our collective ability to pay attention to real problems and find solutions. So, if all this is true, you might be thinking, why don't we just put our phones down? And that brings us to the rise of cruel optimism. Harry takes on the self-help industry's common message, it's your fault. Just be more disciplined. He uses the obesity epidemic as a powerful analogy. We blame individuals for eating too much, but ignore the environment flooded with cheap processed, addictive foods and cities designed against walking. Similarly, with attention, tech companies want us to believe it's an individual problem, offering screen time reports and do not disturb functions while they continue to build products designed to drive them crazy and create a craving. Harris stresses that these individual changes are valuable, but they only solve a slice of the problem. Systemic problems require systemic solutions, and it's not just tech. Harry points to the surge in stress and how it is triggering vigilance. When we're stressed, our brains are hardwired for vigilance, constantly scanning for threats, not deep focus. This is particularly evident in children who've experienced trauma, making them far more likely to be diagnosed with attention problems. Financial stress has a similar impact. Harry shares a study showing sugarcane harvesters were 13 points smarter when they had money after the harvest compared to when they were broke. This constant low-level stress makes us more vulnerable to distraction. Then there's our deteriorating diets and rising pollution. Harris speaks to nutritionists who explain that modern processed foods cause energy spikes and crashes, depriving our brains of essential nutrients. Some food additives even act like drugs, making kids hyperactive. And pollution? Barbara Domini, a French scientist, warns that we're surrounded by so many neurodevelopmental disease-causing pollutants, pesticides, plasticizers, flame retardants that there is no way we can have a normal brain today. Bruce Lanphier, a Canadian health scientist, explains that lead poisoning alone, which used to be rampant due to leaded petrol and paint, makes children 2.5 times more likely to meet AHA criteria. The industries behind these chemicals, much like big tech, Fun research to sow doubt and resist regulation. It's like being told to dust your home or when the entire city is poisoned, which brings us to the rise of AHEAD and how we are responding to it. How it challenges the prevailing narrative that AHEAD is primarily a genetic, biological disorder, while acknowledging a genetic component around Trina 30 based on your research, he argues that environmental factors play a much larger role. He interviews Dr. Sami Tamimi, a British child psychiatrist who treats attention problems by addressing underlying environmental issues like family trauma or lack of support, rather than immediately prescribing stimulants. Hari also highlights the unsettling parallel with veterinarians prescribing Prozac and Ritalin to zoo animals who are pacing or cribbing, essentially medicating them to tolerate intolerable situations. It makes you wonder, are we doing the same to our kids? Finally, Hari emphasizes the confinement of our children, both physically and psychologically. Children today have far less free play than previous generations. Lenore Stanizzi, an advocate for free-range kids, explains that when children play freely, they develop crucial skills like creativity, social bonding, and coping with challenges. Without this, anxiety skyrockets, and intrinsic motivation, the desire to do things for their own sake, withers. Our standardized school systems often prioritize role learning and testing over meaningful engagement, further stifling this natural drive to learn and focus. So Hari's picture is pretty grim, right? But here's the hopeful part, the real takeaway: this crisis is human-made, and it can be unmade by us too. He calls for an attention rebellion. What does that look like? Hari proposes 3 big bold goals for this rebellion. 1. Ban surveillance capitalism, because people being manipulated and hacked can't truly focus. This means changing the business model so companies profit from serving your intentions, not selling your attention. Imagine Facebook with the meet up with friends nearby button instead of endless scrolling. This sounds drastic, but we've banned harmful things before, like lead paint and specs, and we still have paint and hairspray. 2. Introduce a 4-day week because chronically exhausted people can't pay attention. He shares examples of companies like Perpetual Guardian in New Zealand or Microsoft Japan who adopted 4-day weeks and saw increased productivity and happier, less stressed employees. It works. 3. Rebuild childhood around letting kids play freely, both in neighborhoods and at school. This means allowing children a space to develop intrinsic motivation, resilience, and creativity, which are foundational for attention. Hari acknowledges that individual changes like putting your phone in a case safe or changing notification settings are good, and he does them himself, but he's brutally honest, they'll only get you so far. He compares it to running up an escalator that's constantly going down. A few heroic sprints might get you to the top, but most will end up at the bottom, blaming themselves. The real solution requires collective action, a movement to challenge the powerful forces that benefit from our distracted state. This book completely reframed how I think about my own attention struggles. Instead of feeling guilty for getting distracted, and now see the acid being poured on my attention every day by the system designed to profit from it. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, scattered, or just like you can't focus like you used to, this book is for you. It's not about shaming you, it's about empowering you with understanding. It helps you realize that your attention is precious and it's being stolen, but we have the power to take it back. It gave me a new kind of hope, a sense that we don't have to be stuck on this treadmill of continuous checking. We can actually fight for a world where deep focus isn't a luxury but a common experience for all of us. And that, my friends, is a fight worth having. Thanks for listening, and I highly recommend picking up Stolen Focus. Let me know what you think if you read it.